Hi, this is my Paragon Casday Briarden, and I'm going to take you through the events of Guild Wars Nightfall. The story takes place in the nation of Alona, the land of the Golden Sun. This human nation is separated into three provinces, Vabi to the north, Korna to the south, and the island province of Istan. I began my journey by joining the Order of the Sunspears, an autonomous order of defenders who have pledged in defending all of Alona from any threat. A young warrior named Kos is at my side as Spear Marshal Cormier, the head of the order, introduces us into the ranks of the Sunspears. She tells us Corsairs have increased their attacks on Istani coastal towns, and even now they have landed and began assaulting Chabek village nearby. We are put to the test as we try to save the village from their attack. After defeating the Corsairs, we are introduced to Dunkoro, a monk and military strategist. A Kornan emissary asks us to follow a young Kornan woman named Milani and find an excavation team sent by Cormier, killed and left with glowing purple marks on their bodies. We go with the Spear Marshal into Faranur, the first city, to investigate what happened to the digging crew. We arrive in the long-abandoned city and fight past the undead in the area, which have been awoken by some evil within the city. Once we are deep inside, we discover the Apocrypha, a herald of darkness who foretells the coming of the end of days, Nightfall. Once we defeat the Apocrypha, we head back to Kamadan, the central city on Istan, and discover chaos rifts wreaking havoc on the citizens. However, these chaos rifts are not only opening here, but in all major cities around Tyria and Kantha. Cormier sets off to seek more information and to ask for aid of allies in Tyria and Kantha. She appoints Jarek to lead in her absence. While Cormier is away, a young monk named Takora tells Jarek she overheard War Marshal Varish, the leader of the Kornan military, and General Kayet, Varish's mentor, plotting against Istan. Jarek dismisses Takora's claims and wants us to subdue her. However, while we track her through Black Tide Den, we come across some shocking information. We discover General Kayet coordinating with Iron Fist of the Corsairs to increase the Corsair attacks on Istan. Kayet also reveals she is a worshipper of the exiled god Abaddon. Once we confront and defeat her, she boasts of the upcoming Nightfall that will embrace all of Alona. The death of a Kornan general on Istani soil at the hands of the Sunspears led to a trial as to the reasons why we struck down General Kayet. We present our case, however the council is not convinced as to the motive. As a final judgment is about to be passed, Cormier returns to share what she has discovered. War Marshal Varish is seeking to unleash Abaddon from his prison and has been plotting against Istan and the Sunspears. The Order of the Sunspears declare war on Korna and announce their goal to remove Varish from power and end her threat. The province of Istan backs the Sunspears' cause to stop her dark magic and retaliate against her for plotting against Istan. Cormier leads the Istanian Sunspear forces and storms Gandhara, the moon fortress. Cormier's outstanding tactics cause the Kornan defenders to retreat into the main temple for an obvious trap set by Varish. Dunkoro advises the Spear Marshal not to spring it, but she feels the Sunspears must be the ones who take the brunt of Varish's magic. At the final confrontation at the center of the citadel, Varish calls upon powerful demons and the Sunspears and Istani are broken quickly into chaos. Cormier stays behind to buy us time, and we see her fall to one of the demons. Many others are killed and some captured, including Kos. However, I managed to escape. Although it was a crushing blow to the Sunspears, we refused to give up. Using Milani's knowledge of the area, we set up a secret base in an underground cavern under the Kornan's feet. Once established, we free Kos and the other Sunspear prisoners, then travel through the Venta cemetery to evacuate the injured back to Istan by way of a shady Corsair acquaintance of Kos's, Margaret the Sly. Varish sends General Bale to investigate claims that Sunspears are still in Korna. The general asks Varish to send the Hunger, one of the demons unleashed at Gandhara, to help aid in his hunt. Once we have escorted the injured back to Kamadan, we meet with the Istani leaders to brief them on the Battle of Gandhara. They agree to continue the conflict, but would need help. They decide to ask for help from the northern Alonian province, the wealthy merchant province of Vabi. However, the only way through Korna and into Vabi is through the fortress of Jahai, which is filled with Kornan forces. Once we arrive back at the Sunspear Sanctuary in Korna, and while scouting the fortress of Jahai, we discover the Kornans have been enslaving the centaurs of the region. They had apprehended their leader, Mirza Veldrunner. Urged by a mysterious person only known as the Master of Whispers, we help a centaur named Zed Shadowhoof free his leader and others captured in the Condor Crossroads. Once the centaurs are free, Zed agrees to stay with us to see us complete our mission. Now Margaret the Sly tells us she has information confirming Cormier is alive and being held within the Moon Fortress. We soon discover Margaret also has a stake in freeing Cormier, and that we must help her free her sister Shahai the Cunning, as well as steal a valuable gem from the Kornan treasury. We go through the Pogan passage to enter Gandhara disguised as Cornian soldiers, and under the pretense Zed is our prisoner. We get the item, free Cormyr and Shahai, and escape on a waiting boat. However, during the initial battle at Gandhara, Cormyr was blinded by Varish's demons, consequentially now touched by Abaddon. We entrust the safety of Cormyr to Shahai to get the Spear Marshal back to Istan, while Margaret takes us through a secret smuggler's passage into the Badok Caverns to pass into Vabi. However, the passage is known to the Hunger, who tells General Baal to set a trap within the caverns. We fight our way through the traps, kill the general and the demon. Sensing the death of her demon servant, Varish sends a message to all three princes of Vabi. She will be pursuing the Sun Spears in their lands. General Morgan objects because he feels their forces are spread too thin as it is. Varish isn't concerned of the welfare of her human army. She summons the Marganites, the dark servants of Abaddon, as powerful allies. As we pass through Vabi, we meet Kahani, a priestess of Lissa, and she helps us gain an invitation into the Garden of Seberine to attend the Festival of Liss, where the three princes of Vabi will be attending. While attending the festival, we gain access to the princes, Prince Amatur the Mighty, Prince Metu the Wise, and Prince Boka the Magnificent. Then a small flock of harpies interrupts the festivities, which we fight off and save the lives of Vabi's elite, but we fail to convince them of Varish's threat. They believe Varish's army is there to protect them. Kahani notes we did, however, succeed in introducing ourselves to the princes. As an offer of appreciation for our heroics at the festival, Prince Boka invites us to attend a play at his theater. Once we arrive, we discover it is a trap set by the Coordinates to assassinate the princes and the Sun Spears at the same time. The assassination attempt shows the princes the ruthlessness of Varish's intent, and they declare war on her and the Coordinates. But they chose to act in different ways. Prince Amatur the Mighty, being a proud military ruler, decides to make a stand against the Coordinate and Marganite forces at his capital, the Zaganur Citadel. Prince Metu and Prince Boko, however, decide to cower in the hidden city of Adashim, a magical city protected by the Jinn. The Master of Whispers offers to aid Prince Amatur at the Citadel, while Margaret says she knows the passage into the hidden city, and we can enter and convince Metu and Boka to make a stand. While Amatur is getting aid from the Order of Whispers, I chose to go to Adashim and rally the other princes. Once we fight off the protectors of the city, we bring the princes to reason, and they agree to use the Jinn to fight Varish. Then the physical manifestations of Nightfall begin to emerge. Prince Metu the Wise uncovers Varish's plans, as her true intentions was to strike the Sebelka Basilica in the Mirror of Liss, the holiest site in all of Elona. Upon entering the temple, we see Varish already slaughtered all the priests and summoned another demon, the Blasphemy, to open a portal for more of Abaddon's minions. Being raised as a devout follower of the goddess Lissa, General Morgan leaves Varish's side to join us in stopping her. He provides details on her plans and tells us she is heading to the Desolation to perform the final part of her ritual in the Mouth of Torment, the area where the five gods, Dwayna, Lissa, Melandru, Balthazar, and Grenth, struck down Abaddon and imprisoned him in the Realm of Torment. As Nightfall begins across Elona, rifts disrupt reality everywhere. Milani tells us she had a vision of rifts in her village of Ranjak and asks us to help save it against the effects of Nightfall, but Kos wants us to go to the Garden of Seberine and help Vabi so they can continue to be our allies. I chose to help Milani's village. Once it is out of danger, we realize we must enter the sulphurous waste and cross the Desolation to stop Varish Osa. Cormyr tells us she has a way to cross the sulphur and takes us out to the Jahai Bluffs, but a disruption appears and throws Cormyr into the Realm of Torment. At the same time, it frees the infamous undead Lord Palawa Joko. He tried to invade Elona centuries ago from his kingdom within the Desolation, but was defeated by Turaiosa, Varish's ancestor. Unwilling to share his knowledge on how mortals could cross the desert unharmed from the deadly sulphur, he tries to escape back into the Desolation. Using the aid of the centaurs, we catch Palawa and force him to tell us how to cross safely. We learn his mortal armies use Junundu worms to traverse the waste. At the Gates of Desolation, he teaches us how to tame Queen Anjundu and ride inside the worms. Once tamed, we use the worms to storm the Bone Palace and retake it for Palawa. He instructs us how to add siege abilities to the worms, which can crush the Horde of Darkness, the elite Marganite vanguard protecting Varish as she completes her ritual. We reach her at the ruins of Mora and face off with her to try and prevent her from completing the dark ritual. With the aid of General Morgan, we strike down Varish Osa. The victory is short-lived because even though Varish didn't complete the ritual, it did weaken the Dark God's prison, allowing a dark vortex to pull us into the Realm of Torment. Once inside, we find Cormyr. She tells us that anyone who was touched by Abaddon or came in contact with his minions will be pulled into the realm of torment, not just the wicked. She urges us to find a way to stop Abaddon in his realm. At the Gate of Pain, we break the dam holding the river of souls that gave Abaddon power. Here she also explains to us she is to blame for Nightfall. While exploring the forbidden first city of Funrunner, she read from the Apocrypha and began the End of Days. It was here where she was initially touched by Abaddon. After traveling further into the realm of torment, we come across the ruins of an ancient temple to the 6 gods of Tyria. Determined to take the fight to Abaddon, we would need aid from the 5 gods. We begin clearing the temple and fight off demons, shuriken, and titans. Once at the gate of the temple, we fight against Vizier Kilbran, the same Lich Lord from Glenn's Flameseeker prophecies, and Shirotagachi from Kantha, since both have allied themselves with Abaddon. After a long battle, we defeat them again and enter the temple. The avatars of the gods appear to us and give us their blessings. The gods also give Cormia cryptic advice and tell her she will have a choice that only a mortal can make. However, they decline to interfere with the battle with Abaddon, insisting we have the gifts of the gods within ourselves. Determined to end the threat, we assault Abaddon, where we must renew the Dark God's bonds and then attack him in the moments he is chained again. Finally, we are able to destroy a god. Once vanquished, his knowledge and power become unleashed, threatening to destroy the entire world above. Cormia recalls the cryptic message the 5 gods gave her and throws herself into the knowledge and power, replacing Abaddon and becoming the new 6th god, the goddess of truth, knowledge, and secrets, and bringing an end to Nightfall. Now after the defeat of Varish Osa and the fall of Abaddon, Alona was at peace. Those were the events of Nightfall, but the story does not end there. 60 years after Cormia's rise to godhood, Palawa Joko regained his power and marched a new army of undead from the Crystal Desert into a war with Vabi. He dammed and diverted the river Elon, causing a drought and famine in Vabi and northern Korna, creating an oasis along the new path through the Crystal Desert. Here he established his new palace. With the people weakened, he easily broke the Elonian resistance and Vabi fell to his power. Korna and Istan became isolated states. Palawa Joko also oversaw the destruction of the Sunspear Order. Almost forgotten, they became philosophers and lone warriors. However, some gave in to Joko's offer of power. Those former Sunspears pledged their allegiance to the Undead Lord and were given legions to command. Palawa gave them power over death and sent them out to destroy the remaining Sunspears. He called these knights the Morden Crescents. Thank you for watching, and make sure to check out the events of Guild Wars Eye of the North.